I was halfway through organizing my taxes when my phone buzzed with a message that made my stomach flip. Family dinner Sunday. Come early. We need to talk. Mom. No heart emoji. No smiley face. Just that cold, clipped tone she reserved for when something was brewing. My first instinct was to ignore it. But I knew better. Ignoring Mom only delayed the inevitable, and usually made it worse. I'm Natalie Chen. I'm 31, a financial consultant, self-made, fiercely independent, and apparently, still the designated fixer of every family crisis since I turned 12. My father passed away 5 years ago. He had been my only real advocate in the house. The calm in the storm. The reason I hadn't completely imploded under the pressure of being the responsible daughter. The good daughter. The one who didn't cause trouble. Before he died, he made one thing clear. The house in Oakland, our modest 2-bedroom, was to be mine. Not in theory, not in spirit, in writing. The deed was transferred to my name 3 months before his final hospitalization. At the time, I didn't understand why he was in such a rush. But now, I know, because he saw it coming. He saw how my mother had always favored my younger brother, Jason, how she still babied him at 28 years old. How every mistake he made became someone else's responsibility to clean up. Usually mine. After Dad died, I kept the house. I didn't move in. I had a condo in San Francisco near work. But I held onto it. Rented it out. Maintained it. Paid the taxes. Not because I needed the money. But because it mattered. It was the only thing my father ever left me. A legacy. A symbol. A place that said, you matter too. I arrived at Mom's place that Sunday with a bottle of wine and a knot in my stomach. Jason's car was already parked out front, his latest lease. Some sporty thing he couldn't afford. I took a deep breath and rang the doorbell. Mom opened the door with that forced smile she always wore when trying to appear warm. Natalie. Finally, Jason was lounging on the couch like he owned the place. Phone in one hand, barely glancing up. I noticed the kitchen was spotless. The dining table set with more care than usual. That was my second red flag. We ate in awkward silence for most of dinner. Mom commented on the weather. Jason threw in a half-hearted story about some big deal he was closing. I nodded, chewed, waited, because I knew something was coming. And then, after the plates were cleared and the fake smiles faded, Mom leaned forward. Natalie, your brother's been going through something serious. Jason sighed like the weight of the world was on his shoulders. The startup's folding. We got hit hard during the last round of funding. My co-founder bailed. I waited. I need capital to stay afloat. He said, not forever. Just to bridge this rough patch. How much? I asked. Because of course, they weren't going to tell me unless I pried. Jason cleared his throat. 150. I blinked. 1,000? Don't be dramatic. Mom cut in. It's just money. I stared at her. You want me to give Jason $150,000? No, she said, as if that made it better. We think the best thing would be for you to sell the Oakland house. That would cover it and then some. You don't even live there. My fork hit the plate with a clatter. That house isn't a backup fund for Jason's failed businesses. I said, my voice tighter than I intended. It's not even yours to offer. Mom's expression darkened. Don't be selfish. Natalie, your brother is trying. He's out there taking risks. Building something. You just sit in an office and move other people's money around. Jason didn't even flinch. I stood up. I'm not selling the house. You don't need it, she snapped. No, but I want it, and I'm keeping it. Mom's lips thinned. Jason looked away. If you walk out that door without helping your brother, she said quietly, you'll regret it. Family doesn't turn its back like this. I looked at both of them. Then maybe it's time I start redefining what family means. I walked out without saying another word. My hands shaking, heart pounding, but deep down, for the first time in a long while, I felt something else blooming beneath the fear. Freedom. I didn't cry on the drive home. Not because I wasn't angry, or hurt, or tired, but because none of it was new. This wasn't the first time I'd been expected to pay for Jason's mistakes. It wasn't even the 5th. But this time felt different. Sharper. Like I'd finally reached the cliff edge and looked down, and realized I didn't have to jump just because they were yelling at me to. When I got home, I poured myself a glass of wine, sat on the couch, and stared at the ceiling. $150,000. The sheer audacity of it made me laugh. Short and bitter. Jason hadn't even said please. He just assumed I'd do it. Sell off the only thing of real sentimental value I had left from Dad. Like it was some chip I'd been holding for him to cash in when convenient. That night, I pulled out the box I kept under my bed, the one with my father's things. There was a letter in there. One he wrote me just weeks before he passed. I hadn't read it in years. I unfolded the paper, my hands steady, and began reading. Natalie, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and if I know your mother, she's already trying to give the house to Jason. Don't let her. This house is yours for a reason. Not because you were my favorite, but because you were the one who stood on your own 2 feet. Who never asked for more than what she earned. I know it hasn't been easy. And I know how much you've carried. You deserve something that's just yours. Hold on to this, Nat. Not just the deed, but your dignity. I love you, Dad. I folded the letter back carefully and placed it in the box. So, no, I wasn't selling. The next morning, my inbox was already full, mostly work. Thankfully, but by noon, I saw the name I was expecting, Jason Chen. Subject: Let's talk. He had sent a spreadsheet. Of course he did. It was filled with projections, expenses, supposed exit strategies for his startup. I skimmed through it. Honestly, it wasn't even that bad, if it had come from someone who'd ever once taken responsibility for anything in his life. At the bottom of the email, he wrote, Natalie, I know you think I'm just asking for a handout. I'm not. I'm building something real, and you can either be part of it, or stay bitter. This is family. You always talk about wanting to honor Dad. Well, help me make something he'd be proud of. I stared at the line about Dad. How dare he use that? I didn't reply. Instead, I called Aunt May, Dad's older sister. She lived up in Sacramento now. A retired nurse. Sharp as ever. We weren't particularly close, but she was one of the few people left who'd actually known my father well. She picked up on the second ring. Natalie? Hi, Aunt May. Do you have a few minutes? Always. What's going on? I told her everything. The dinner, the demand, the guilt-tripping, Jason's email. There was silence on the other end for a moment. And then a quiet sigh. Your father always worried about this. She said, that after he was gone, you'd be treated like the backup plan. The resource, not the daughter. I bit the inside of my cheek. Let me ask you something. Natalie, she continued, if the roles were reversed, if you were the one drowning, would Jason sell his house for you? The answer came before I could even speak. No, I whispered. Then there's your answer. I thanked her and hung up. Something in me shifted after that call. It wasn't just anger anymore, it was clarity. I opened my laptop and started writing. Not to Jason, not to my mother, but to a lawyer, just in case. That night, I got another message, this time from Mom. A photo. It was of her and Jason, standing in front of the Oakland house. My house. The caption said, where family memories are made. No context, no text, just that image, and I knew they were planning something. I called the property management company I'd hired to rent the place out. Spoke to the rep. Anita, has anyone tried to access the house? I asked. There was a pause. Actually, yes. Your brother came by last week. Said he was just checking the yard. Claimed you gave permission. I didn't. I figured. I asked for proof. And he didn't have any. But just so you know, he mentioned something about moving in if it stayed vacant. I felt my heart rate spike. I need the locks changed. I said. Today. Anita promised to take care of it. By midnight, Jason's Instagram showed a very cryptic story. A champagne glass. A caption that said, New Beginnings, and a location tag near Oakland. I smiled. Too late, little brother. I wasn't the same Natalie who used to quietly pick up the broken pieces behind him. This time, I wasn't just walking away. I was shutting the door behind me, and locking it tight. By the next morning, Jason's texts had turned from smug to frantic. First, it was confusion. Hey, did you change the locks? Then irritation. Nat, seriously? We're family. This is petty. And finally, accusation. I can't believe you'd sabotage your own brother's future over some stupid grudge. I didn't reply to any of them. I didn't need to, because I knew where this was headed, and I was ready. That afternoon, I received a call from Anita at the property management company. You're going to want to hear this, she said, her voice calm but with an edge of disbelief. Jason showed up again, with a moving truck. I froze. What? He told the movers to break the lock if they had to. Said the place was basically his anyway. But don't worry, I was here. I called the police before it got that far. He left when they showed up. But he was furious. I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. He's trying to squat in my house. He's trying to bully you into giving it up. She corrected gently. But it's not working. We've got everything documented. I've filed a trespassing report. And we can escalate if he tries anything else. After I hung up, I stared at my phone for a long time. This wasn't about a house anymore. This was about power. About years of being expected to make myself small, quiet, convenient. Jason didn't just want access to the house. He wanted access to me, my guilt, my sense of duty, my fear of being the bad guy. He wasn't going to get it. Later that evening, I got an email from my mother. No subject line, no greeting, just 3 sentences. You've changed, Natalie. You used to care about this family. You're becoming just like your father, cold and selfish. I should have deleted it. Instead, I clicked reply and typed just 2 words. Thank you. And then I blocked her. I didn't cry that night either. But I did pull out the dusty journal I hadn't touched in years. I wrote down everything, every memory, every moment I'd stayed silent when I wanted to scream. Every time I'd paid someone else's bill while skipping dinners out for myself. Every time I'd been called too much or not enough. I filled page after page until my hand cramped. Until the weight of it all sat in ink. Not in my chest. The next morning, I woke up to silence. No texts. No calls. No guilt tripping. It felt unreal. I made coffee. Sat on my balcony. Let the sun warm my face. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I owed anyone anything. Until the phone rang. It was Aunt May. Sorry to call so early, sweetheart, she said, but you might want to check Facebook. I sighed. What now? There's a post from your mom. It's public. I opened the app, already bracing myself. It was a photo of the Oakland house again, but this time with text overlaying the image. My late husband bought this house for our family. Not so one child could hoard it while the rest of us suffer. Some people forget where they come from. But we never will. Hashtag family first, hashtag justice for Jason. The post had over 100 likes. Most were distant cousins or family friends I barely knew. But the comments? Full of venom. She's always been ungrateful. She probably tricked her dad into giving her everything. What kind of daughter kicks her own mother out of a family home? I felt like I was going to be sick. They were rewriting the story again. Just like they always had. But this time, I wasn't a teenager with no voice. I had the truth. I had receipts. And more importantly, I had the strength to use them. I messaged Anita again. Let's go ahead and file the no contact order. She replied instantly. Already prepared. Just say the word. I said it. And then I logged into my own account and made my own post. No drama. No shade. Just a single photo of me standing in front of the Oakland house, holding the deed in one hand and my dad's letter in the other. Caption: This house was never about money. It was about legacy. And I'm done letting anyone rewrite mine. Then I logged off. Because I didn't need their approval anymore. I had something better. Peace. 2 days passed before I checked social media again. Not because I was avoiding it. But because I was genuinely free. I took long walks. I slept through the night. I even cooked, really cooked, for the first time in months. Nothing fancy. Just food that smelled like comfort and reminded me I had a life outside of survival. When I finally logged back in, my post had gone viral, at least by family standards. Over 200 shares, hundreds of comments, and not all of them were negative. One of my cousins, Ray, the only one who ever really talked to me like a person, had written. I remember when Natalie used to help my mom with groceries after Uncle Ben passed. No one else offered. She's always been generous. Y'all just didn't notice because she didn't demand attention for it. Another comment. From someone I barely knew. This is why I tell my daughters to set boundaries. We should be allowed to protect our peace. Even from family. I sat there, stunned. For the first time, my truth wasn't being shouted down. It was being heard. Later that night, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Hello? A beat. Then a voice I hadn't heard in years. Hey, Nat. It's Clarissa. Clarissa was my cousin on my dad's side. We used to be close. But after the divorce, her mom cut ties with mine. And we hadn't spoken since. I saw the post, she said softly, and I just wanted to say, I'm sorry, for everything. I didn't know half of what was going on. It's okay, I said, because honestly, it was. No, really. I've been thinking a lot about how our family talks about loyalty like it's the same thing as obedience. It's not. You're brave, and I'm proud of you. That's when the tears finally came. Not out of sadness, but relief. Healing doesn't always look like fireworks or grand speeches. Sometimes it's a quiet voice saying, I believe you, after years of silence. By the end of the week, the noise had quieted. Jason had stopped texting. My mom's post had stopped getting new comments. The world had, mercifully, moved on, and so had I. I started working with a financial advisor to finally renovate the Oakland house. Not for Jason, not for my mom, but for me, because I wanted to turn that house into something that reflected my story, not theirs. The garden Dad once loved so much? I brought it back to life. Hired a local gardener who'd grown up 2 blocks away and told me stories about my father I'd never heard. The faded rooms? I painted them in soft, bright colors. Nothing like the cold grays my mother preferred. This house wasn't a shrine anymore. It was a beginning. Then, one rainy Thursday morning, I found a letter in my mailbox. No return address. Just my name, written in that slanted handwriting I knew all too well. Inside was a single sheet of paper. I hope one day you'll understand what it's like to sacrifice everything for a child. Only to be repaid with silence and betrayal. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope you remember who raised you. There was no signature, but I didn't need one. I folded the letter once, then slid it into the back of the old journal I kept on my nightstand. Not because I wanted to keep it, but because sometimes, reminders of what you survived are just as important as reminders of what you've built. Later that evening, I hosted my first dinner in the newly renovated kitchen. Just a few friends. Clarissa came, too. We lit candles, played music, talked about everything and nothing. At one point, someone asked, what made you finally draw the line? I thought about it for a second, then smiled. I realized I was allowed to stop bleeding just to prove I loved someone. They were quiet for a moment. Then someone raised a glass. To knowing where you end and someone else begins. To peace, Clarissa added, and we clinked glasses to that. Not because the past was gone, but because it no longer controlled the room. A few weeks later, I found myself standing in front of the mirror, brushing my hair back as I got ready for a local women's leadership panel. It wasn't the kind of thing I used to say yes to. But Clarissa had nominated me. And somehow, I'd been chosen to speak about boundaries, resilience, and finding your voice when it feels like the whole world is asking you to stay quiet. I wore a navy blue blazer that made me feel steady, grounded, and as I stood backstage, waiting for my turn, I caught a glimpse of myself in the reflection. There was a time I wouldn't have recognized that woman. But now, she looked like someone who had walked through fire and made a home out of the ashes. When it was my turn to speak, I walked up to the microphone and took a breath. I used to think love meant sacrificing parts of yourself for other people. That if you said no, you were ungrateful. That if you set boundaries, you were selfish. I paused, scanning the room full of women, each of them carrying their own quiet battles. But I've learned that real love, healthy love, doesn't demand silence. It doesn't ask you to dim your light so someone else can shine brighter. And family? Family isn't just the people who share your last name. It's the people who respect your no, who celebrate your yes, who see your worth even when you're not useful to them. There was a hush in the room. The kind that follows truth. I continued. I spent most of my life trying to be the good daughter. The reliable niece. The one who never rocked the boat. Until one day, I realized I wasn't in a boat, I was drowning. And the only way out was to swim for myself. Someone in the back sniffled. Another woman clapped softly. Then the applause grew. Slow, warm, real. After the panel, people came up to thank me. One woman hugged me, tears in her eyes. You just described my entire childhood. She said, I thought I was the only one. You're not. I told her, not even close. Later that night, I walked home under the stars. Heels in hand, city lights dancing on the pavement. When I reached my front porch, the one I'd scrubbed clean and filled with plants, I paused. There was a small package on the doorstep. No label, no note. Inside was a framed photograph of my father, standing in that same garden I'd just replanted. He was holding me in one arm, a baby blanket tucked under his chin. I didn't know where it had come from. Maybe Aunt Lila, maybe Clarissa, maybe someone who saw my post and wanted to give something back. Whatever the reason, I brought it inside and placed it on the mantel. And for the first time, that house didn't feel like a memory. It felt like mine. It's been 6 months since that dinner. And a lot has changed. My mom never sent another letter. Jason moved to Nevada. From what I hear, he still sends emails every now and then, asking about the house. I never reply, but I kept the house. Not because I owed it to anyone, but because I wanted to reclaim what was mine. I turned the garage into a home office, where I now run a consulting business helping women in toxic family dynamics regain control over their lives. It's small, but it's growing, and every time I sit down at my desk, I glance at the photo on the mantle and remember who I come from, and more importantly, who I've chosen to become. I still get lonely sometimes. But it's a peaceful kind of lonely. Not the kind that makes you shrink yourself to fit into someone else's version of family. The truth is, I haven't just built a house or a business. I've built a life where I belong. A life where I no longer need to be the good girl, the fixer, the quiet one. A life where I am the main character, not the background. And if anyone tries to rewrite that story again, well, now I know how to hold the pen. This story is a powerful reminder that setting boundaries, especially with family, is not selfish. It's necessary. It speaks to anyone who's ever been expected to carry the weight of others while silencing their own needs. If you felt empowered by Natalie's journey to reclaim her peace and legacy, comment 2 below. If the story didn't resonate with you, feel free to comment 7. We welcome all perspectives. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Reddit Story for more real, emotional, and thought-provoking Reddit stories every week.